Hello and welcome back to the latest You Are My Boro. Myself, Dom Sean, Scott Wilson, both of the Northern Echo. And I remember, Scott, not too long ago, we were sitting down to do these vids early in the summer. And before we pressed record, we were like, what are we gonna talk about? Are we gonna fill 25 minutes? Oh yeah, that happened, didn't it? We can get 25 minutes out of that minuscule subject. Well, here we are now, a couple of months on, and we could probably sit here for 2.5 hours and still be chuntering away about various developments. It's been a busy week before we even get to the football. I mean, Norwich feels an eternity ago already, doesn't it? It's been one of those weeks, I think, which I guess is just final stages of the transfer window.
Yeah, it feels like we could do 25 minutes on the last 25 minutes, doesn't it, really? I mean, it's been busy. Because Boro were fairly slow in getting started, there was always a chance, wasn't there, or a pretty decent likelihood that the last couple of weeks were going to be pretty manic. And it does feel like we're right in the middle of that now. I mean, to be fair to Boro, quite a lot of their work now is done, but there are a few obviously key outlying issues which we're going to touch on, which will obviously have to get resolved one way or the other between now and it's 7 o'clock, isn't it, on Monday this time? Not quite the 11 o'clock dash that it normally is, but we'll do that for 7.
Yeah, it's good that. Fingers crossed, if Boro don't do anything too late, I should still be able to get down and play darts on Monday night afterwards.
Well, yeah, you've got Monday night darts. It would have ruined Keith Lamb and his fax machine, wouldn't it, though?
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, that was the staple transfer deck. Can Keith get the fax machine wound up fast enough for it to for them to get this deal done?
So let's see how it plays out. But for the last few weeks, we've been talking about the priorities being up front and left wing back. Well, Matt Targett is in. Kaly Sene is very shortly going to be in. He's soon going to be in. You did the piece earlier this week saying Boro were putting the finishing touches to that one. Let's start with Targett, because he's a player we've both watched a fair bit of, obviously at Newcastle, covering Newcastle as well for the Northern Echo. And I've been over to speak to him at Rockcliffe today, so we'll chat about that as well. But first of all, good signing, exactly what Boro need, makes sense. What do you make of it?
I think, Dom, it's easy to see why Boro have targeted him.
It writes itself, doesn't it?
How many headlines are that we're going to have? No, I mean, being seriously, I do think it's, Sammy Silvera has impressed an awful lot of people at left wing back. He's been a surprise. He's been the surprise of pre-season, really, hasn't he? And he started the season well. That said, I did think he was found wanting at times at Carrow Road last weekend. And it's pretty clear that he's much more comfortable on the front foot than on the back foot defending his positioning. So while Boro are clearly going to play with wing backs, it felt like the priority was to get a defensive one so that you've got a player that if you do want to shut up shop, if you do want to play as a 5 rather than a 3-4-3, away at Ipswich, say, later in the season or in a big playoff game or whatever, it felt like that if they were going to bring in another defender to be different to Silvera on that flank, get one who is primarily defensive. And I think that is Targett. Now, that's not to say he can't attack because, he scored for Newcastle in pre-season. He's got assists throughout his career. He can get forward. He can get crosses in. But he can also defend. And so I think, what he does is he just offers them a real alternative to Silvera. And it means that Rob Edwards can go horses for courses there. He can go more defensive, or he can go more attacking, or he can mix it up during a game. And while there has been, in the last few years at Boro, a general desire to avoid a whole host of loan signings, that hasn't meant at any stage that they've not been willing to make the odd loan signing. And I think this is a loan signing that makes real sense, because I think if you were trying to permanently sign someone of the ability of Matt Targett, probably talking, depending on the contract situation, up to 10 million, 10 million. If Newcastle was selling Matt Targett, they'd be hoping to get that kind of ballpark for him, I think. So you're getting a player probably better than you could permanently sign. So then why wouldn't you do it? It's a big season for Targett because he hasn't played very much football for Newcastle since moving there for Villa. Partly that's been because he's faced a lot of competition. Partly it has been injuries. And clearly keeping him fit is going to be an issue, a priority. Let's hope that happens. But I think it's a signing that makes real sense.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things on it. It's no secret that Max Arfston was a left back who Boro wanted this summer.
Yeah.
But when it became clear, and all the indications very early on were that Columbus Crew did not want to sell, were going to play hard ball, and so it proved. And I think Boro realised that rather than head into a dark alley really and try and battle for a signing that wasn't going to happen, they had to maybe turn their attention elsewhere, lined up a couple of potential loan targets. And that gives them the option to assess Targett, who is in the final year of his contract now at Newcastle. So you've got a situation like Luke Ayling was a couple of years ago, where Targett's coming in. Now, whether that's at Boro or elsewhere, he's going to be desperate to prove a point because he's playing for his future effectively. Boro will benefit or should benefit from that regardless of what happens next summer. But it also gives them the chance to still possibly address and return to the Arfston situation in future windows, because for all that Columbus didn't want to sell now, that doesn't mean they won't in future windows when scenarios change, situations change. And I think the other thing is perception is so hard to shift in football, isn't it? And there's probably this perception that Matt Targett is injury prone because of the lack of football he's played over the last few years. He was a major player for Newcastle, a key player in their initial survival when Eddie Howe first went in, wasn't he? £15 million.
He's basically had one season that's been ruined by injuries.
Well,
that's all, really.
He had the one serious hamstring injury, didn't he? And I was there that night. I think it was at Man United in the Cup when he had it, when he suffered the injury. He had one serious hamstring injury, then got an Achilles slight tear, pull, strain on his way back from that. I mean, I think we've seen with Darrell Lenihan as an example over the course of the last year or so, when you're making your way back from a serious injury, other setbacks are inevitable because your body's adjusting to the load again and the workload. But last year, when he was largely fit, I mean, there was a spell when he was out early last year when he had an eczema flare up and he couldn't play because the medication he was taking would have wasn't allowed because of the doping regulations in football. So again, like, that's a complete freak incident, really. Last year, he then finds himself in a position where he comes back. Lewis Hall's established himself as probably the best left back in the country. And Newcastle have got Kieran Trippier, Tino Livramento and Dan Burn, who can all play there. So it's hard enough to get in the squad, never mind the team. He said today when we were speaking to him, he's had a full pre-season, a full injury-free pre-season. And he comes in very much ready to go. Let's see. That's not to say that he won't have any setbacks this season. Fingers crossed it won't come to that. But I just think the narrative of his last 2 or 3 years have been completely riddled by injuries is unfair, but inevitable.
Yeah, and you've got to remember that when he joined Newcastle from Villa, he was, Dini was keeping him out with the Villa team, but Newcastle was signing him because he was regarded as one of the best 5 or 6 maybe left backs kind of around in the league that they could realistically get. He's got a pedigree about him. I think it'll be interesting to see whether he goes straight in this weekend or whether Edwards gives Silvera another game. Probably not.
I think
probably not. But I did think Silvera struggled positionally at Norwich, and we don't really know yet what Edwards' view is on terms of putting players straight in. Does he feel they need a bit? If this was Carrick, he wouldn't be playing because Carrick's view was definitely he would need a week's training with the team. He needs to get used to it, but all of that. Edwards might well think like that, but he might also think, he's an experienced Premier League player. He's ready. If I want to play him, he's ready. I suspect it'll be Silvera, but I don't think it's nailed on.
The other thing is, obviously we'll get to Azaz and the attacking midfield area. In bringing Targett in, you've got the option to play Silvera in a more natural, advanced position moving forward. Now, again, at the start of the summer, you'd have probably thought that and thought, come on, we haven't seen anywhere near enough of Silvera to suggest he's got a role going forward. But he's proved everyone wrong over the summer. So And he's impressed Edwards enormously, hasn't he? So he has absolutely still got a role to play going forward.
No, and the thing with Silvera is we've seen just through pre-season, he's versed. He could play right wing back, couldn't he? If Boro had an absolute crisis there, he could play right wing back. So I think Silvera will remain an important part of this squad this season. That's something we didn't think we'd say, because he's still one of only 2 real options they've got at left wing back. But also, like you say, if there are issues in other areas of the pitch, he is very versatile.
Kaly Sene?
Kaly Sene, yeah. I mean, well down the line, I think we can confidently say now. Obviously, the news kind of broke over the weekend. At that stage, it was Boro still tying up the deal with Lausanne, and they were confident that Sene wanted to come, but that had to be copper-bottomed. That now all has been copper-bottomed. The deal's pretty much there, if not absolutely there.
It might be by the time you're watching and listening.
By the time, yeah, exactly. By the time you watch this, it might well be confirmed. We know from transfers that things like medicals, all of that, it can collapse at the last minute, but it would need something like that now, I think, for it to go wrong. Sene wants to come to Boro. The deal is done with Lausanne. All things being equal, I expect that to be confirmed probably before the weekend. Certainly, well ahead of deadline here.
And we'll maybe get into Sene in more detail next week and what he'll offer the side and all that.
Yeah.
Because we've got a fair bit to get through here, haven't we? And we've got an international break to fill in the next couple of weeks. So once that's wrapped up, we can maybe talk a bit more about what he'll offer and all that moving forward. But he might not be the only forward joining before the deadline.
No, I think
earlier this week.
I think the desire is for two to come in. Now, I think whatever happens, Sene will come. If Sene was to collapse at the last minute, clearly another striker comes in place of him. There is a desire to bring in two. There was an acceptance that Boro had to sign a striker before the end of the window. We knew that. We've been saying it all along. Tommy Conway started the season really, really well. Yes, you've got Bergzorg. I think Marcus Force has now pretty much dropped completely out the picture. I mean, he wasn't even in the squad at Carroll Road at the weekend. So Bergzorg feels like really your only alternative. That needed to change. They've looked at a number of different strikers. We know that there have been kind of exploratory talks around a number of different strikers. But I think about a week ago, the decision was made that Sene was the one they wanted to go for. It was complicated a little bit by Lausanne playing European matches. I think they wanted to get the absolute maximum out of him in terms of their European program as he can. And he's already scored 3 European goals this season.
And 3 and 3 in the league as well.
And 3 and 3 in the league, yeah. So, he's coming at the absolute peak of his form. So, yeah, I think Boro are really hopeful that they've got a promising youngish striker there who can, grow, develop, but who is pretty much ready to make an impact on the championship. I don't think they're signing Sene thinking he's going to need 6 months. He's not ready yet. They're signing him thinking he's ready to go in and play championship football. Now, Boro probably, if nothing else happened, Boro can get away with that, can't they? Sene, Conway, Bergzorg, you can just about get away with it. I think they know that ideally you'd like to get another one, and that's probably the only one other deal. There might be outliers depending on what happens with players going out. We'll get to that in a minute. But as we sit here now, if Sene goes through, the other main priority for Boro in this window then becomes, can they get another forward in? And, we know names have been out there. We know that Strelic, there's always been interested in him all summer. Clearly, his position has been affected by a European campaign at his current employers as well. We know there are other targets in France. They've been well talked about, obviously, at Metz. So, yeah, I think the desire would be, can we get another one in? But Sene, I strongly think will happen.
And another one that's going to happen, barring any late and unexpected hitches, is Finn Azaz to Southampton. That one first emerged last week when Southampton first put the bid in, and all the suggestions there were the bid hasn't reached Boro's valuation, but the expectation was, I think, right from the off, that Southampton were going to come back and a deal was likely. Well, that was the case on, where are we, Wednesday, when Southampton came back in with an improved offer, 12 million plus 3 million for Azaz, 15 million in total. Obviously, he was going down to complete that move. And that, as I say, unless there's any dramatic and unexpected twist, that one's going to go through. Boro didn't want to lose Finn Azaz at the start of this summer. At the start of this summer, I think the Vandenberg and Hackney were the two who we were talking about, and I think the two that were being talked about within as well, weren't they? The ones that are likely to get most interest. Although there was the early reports with Azaz, Crystal Palace, Leeds linked, weren't there? Then it went quiet. Boro didn't want to lose him this summer, but Azaz made it clear he wanted the move, he wanted to leave. From what we gather, he wasn't particularly settled at the club. he wanted to move on. The Southampton move appealed to him, and it kind of forced Boro's hand a little bit. Now, that's not to say that Boro were going to bend over and let him go. The valuation still had to be reached, and 15 million is a deal that Boro held out for, because the first bid from Southampton, I don't think was north of 10 million. So they've clearly held out to get that improved offer. But in a situation like this, you either end up, you either sell or you turn down 15 million pounds and are left with a player on your hands who isn't happy with the club and has made it clear he wants out. Again, I had plenty of reaction from fans yesterday saying that he's worth more than that. But I think given the circumstances, given the fact Finn Azaz has never played Premier League football as well, I think it's a good deal for Boro, and I think it's a deal they have to do.
Well, I mean, let's start off straight away. I mean, 2.5 million they paid for him. Yeah. What? Where are we now? A year and a half ago, 18 months ago. I mean, 2.5 to 15 is yet again, we've been saying it, haven't we, repeatedly now for a couple of years, really. Morgan Rogers, Latterlath, now Finn Azaz, Rav Vandenberg, obviously, the transfer route that Boro are going down is paying dividends, and the money that they have brought into the club, you've got to applaud. So, Kieran Scott, the recruitment team, everyone around that, yes, there have been an odd misstep along the way. There's always going to be when you're signing players, but they have got an awful lot more right than they have got wrong in the last couple of years. And Finn Azaz is a real proof of that. As you say, I think a couple of big issues here. One was Azaz made it pretty clear that he really wanted this move. He hasn't felt massively kind of settled and comfortable at Boro. He's played well. There have been times when Finn Azaz, I think, has been Boro's best player for reasonably lengthy periods. There have also been times when you probably want a bit more out of him. I think that's a fair thing to say as well. His form has been a bit up and down, but the stats have been there with him. I remember when we've had talks about Isaiah Jones in the past and what he could do and what he couldn't do. And then it would get to 3/4 of the way through the season, and you'd look at the stats and he'd scored 2 goals and had 3 assists. Finn Azaz has been leading the championship assists market or right up there ever since he came in at Boro. And he scored goals as well. So he's played really well. He will be a loss. But I think from Boro's perspective, can you turn down that kind of money for a player who, while we're not anywhere near Alexander Isak levels, is clearly agitating for a move and wants to leave, wants to go. And I also think with Boro, Sverre Naipan, don't underestimate the fact that Boro have brought him in primarily to play as a creative attacker midfielder, as a 10, which is pretty much where Finn Azaz needs to play. And Boro think that they've got a really exciting, good signing there. Man City have raved about him. They've watched everything he's done in Norway. They think that they have a player there who is going to be playing regular championship football this season, provided he stays fit and obviously provided things go okay with him. I think that's come into Boro's thinking as well. Had Naipan not been there and had they not had kind of, replacements effectively already in place, I think there would have been a much greater reluctance to do this deal. I think the fact that Naipan is there, they think a lot of him. And, there are other midfielders who can play in and around that role as well. I mean, I think we'll probably be debating all season about where Morgan Whittaker's best position is and where he should play. But as a 10 is clearly an option for him.
Sonty Hansen's come in.
Hansen, exactly.
Hackney's played.
Can play wide, but looks like he could be a threat as a 10 as well. He'll need to settle down and see where he gets. So I think that's part of Boro's thinking as well, yeah.
Just on Naipan, as I said, when we went over to speak to Targett, we spoke to Naipan as well. And he was great, like fascinating stuff. Yeah, really, really good about his football.
Are we right, once and for all, are we going Naipan or are we going Naipan?
We asked him.
And he said?
And he said Naipan, but I don't mind what you call me. And I'm like, well, if you read the Northern Echo, you'll know we pride ourselves on accuracy. So we will say Sverre Naipan.
Right.
So Sverre Naipan, yeah. But he was class, talking about his upbringing his first memory of football when he scored an own goal as a 5-year-old and went off the pitch crying, and how staggering it is to think 10 years later he was playing for Rosenberg's first team, like 15-year-old.
Absolutely wild.
But anyway, at the end, I said to him, the question.
How do you say your name again?
Yeah. I said the question fans have asked all the time is, or I've kept asking me is, are you an 8 or are you a 10? And he said both, either both, which I think taps into the like real assured confidence.
Assurance, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But he said, I'm happily playing both. I can play as an 8, I can play as a 10, as long as I'm in the centre. So that's comfortable. And just on that, I also asked Matt Targett, and it's Matt Targett.
Yeah. And he's most comfortable at left back, yeah?
Well, actually, so on that front, Mark from BBC T said to him, like left back, left wing back.
Yeah.
And he said, I've played both. So I'm more than happy doing both. Because I had seen a few saying, well, is he not a left back rather than a left wing back? But no, he's going to be more than comfortable playing there as well. Hayden Hackney then.
Hayden Hackney, yes.
What's the latest there? Because so just to set the scene, I guess, really. Yeah. We know what happened with Ipswich earlier this summer. We know Ipswich had a bid. We know Ipswich had a bid accepted. We know Hackney, after deliberation, decided against that. Premier League interest. I'm just looking out. Is it starting to rain? Because my washing's out. No, it's not yet. Premier League interest has been there this summer, or has been talked about, but there's been no firm bids, has there?
No.
That kind of talk has ramped up a bit this week, as kind of inevitably does, I think, in the final stages of the window. But Boro are pretty adamant he's not going.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, where we're at is that Boro are very strong on the fact that they do not want to sell Hayden Hackney this month, and they will be doing pretty much everything that's in their power not to sell Hayden Hackney. Now, does that mean, as I keep being asked repeatedly on social media, can you categorically say there is no chance Hayden Hackney will leave Middlesbrough this month? Well, no, you can't. You can't do that, because who knows what will happen between now and the deadline day. Boro, I think they've got a pretty good feel of what type of bid, if they get one for Hackney, will come in this month. And they feel very confident that they'll be able to turn that down. Now, you know, what happens if Man United suddenly decide they're going to panic and bring in 4 young midfielders and one of them is Hayden Hackney and they're willing to pay 40 million for him? Clearly, that is a completely different scenario to anything Boro think is realistically possible. That might mean Hayden Hackney goes. So, I don't think anyone can say this absolutely will not happen. But what we can say is that Boro, as we sit here on Thursday afternoon, are very confident that they will be able to keep Hayden Hackney at the Riverside, and that takes into account the fact that the stories have obviously been circulating in the last 24 hours that Hackney would ideally like the chance to speak to a Premier League club if they come in for them, would potentially be interested in move to the Premier League. That's nothing new for Boro. That's not kind of new news. Boro know that Hayden Hackney's ambitious. They know that at some, to a certain extent, they wouldn't want him not to want to play in the Premier League, would they? I mean, he's an England under-21 international. We know the progress he's made. But Boro are not surprised by stories emanating that Hayden Hackney would like it. I think Boro's view, to some extent, is, look, we played ball with you at the start of the month. Ipswich came in. We accepted the offer. We gave you the chance to go there and speak to them. You took that chance. You decided you didn't want to go to Ipswich. Fine. That's not a problem. We went along with that. That's all fine. Where this is different now is clearly the fact that we're 3 days away from the transfer window closing. That is massively different to the scenario Boro were in at the start of the month when they were willing to let Hackney go because they had a month then to get a replacement. Things have also changed in that Rav van den Berg has left. Finn Azaz is leaving. Yeah. So 2 big chunks of money have come into the football club. And Rob Edwards' squad has been weakened by the loss of 2 very good players. Now, Boro will say, and I'm sure Edwards will say, that there are players who have come in and he's happy with the squad he's got and replacements are in place. But the reality still is that 2 key players have left this summer. Would Boro want that to be 3? And would they want it to become 3 in the last couple of days of the window when signing anything like for like replacement for Hayden Hackney would be pretty much impossible? The answer is no. And that's why the only way their stance changes, I think, is if they get an offer that they just didn't see coming. And I don't think that will be the kind of offer that, say, West Ham might come up with, because there's been so much talk around West Ham. Boro know that if West Ham come in, pretty much what they're going to be offering. I think they've got a pretty good handle on that in terms of all the clubs that have kind of been sniffing around him. But if something comes out of complete left field, maybe from abroad even, that might change it. But as we sit here, the very, very strong message from Boro is Hayden Hackney's not leaving this month.
This has been a challenging summer for a number of reasons. Azaz goes, Hackney stays, Sene comes in, and whether or not another forward comes in, if another forward comes in, then 100%. But
yeah,
that's a successful window, isn't it? That's a successful summer.
I think that if Hayden Hackney stays, then with the business that we know Boro are pretty much already done, and like you say, if they can get another forward over the line, then I think in challenging circumstances, that has to be deemed a success.
100%.
You know, you've got Alfie Jones, so you've ticked the box at centre half. He's gone straight in, hit the ground running, looks absolutely ready-made for it. You've got Callum Britton, which was a big box that needed ticking on that side. You stuck at it when for a long time it looked like Blackburn weren't going to play a ball there. You got that one over the line. Again, he just has hit the ground running, taking it like a duck to water, looks absolutely fine. You've got Targett as your left back that you needed. You've got Nipan as your kind of exciting, dare I say it, Ben Doak style wild card. You're going to get 1 forward. You might get 2 forwards. Yes, we need to see what they're going to be like. And, you know, you really need one of them to be kind of oven ready and able to be a replacement for Tommy Conway straight away if anything was to happen to him. So we need to reserve judgment there a little bit because we clearly haven't seen Sene and we haven't seen anyone else who might come in. But that being said, and yes, you know, there is a little bit of regret about losing Vandenberg, who could go on to be anything, but clearly had his mind absolutely set on a move. And a bit of regret about losing Azaz, who has been a creator.
But you've got Addison Malander coming in as well for Vandenberg.
Yes, and good point. It's going to be easy to forget about that one between now and January, isn't he? But that's one that Boro are hugely excited about and think long term, you know, could be a brilliant signing. So let's get to the end of the window. Let's actually see what happens. But if Hackney stays, I think this is a successful window for Boro.
Very quickly, because I know you need to be aware. Again, game of football at the weekend, easy to forget when all this is going on.
It is.
Sheffield United, who have had a rotten start.
Bring back Chris Wilder, all is forgiven.
I've been reading stuff today, like pressure mounts, asking to explain himself. It's all very Ruben Amorim with why are you wedded to your preferred system when the players you've got clearly don't fit it. Haven't got a point yet. They're expected to be right there in the mix again, but clearly at the minute they're down below Sheffield Wednesday, crisis club Sheffield Wednesday in the table. When the fixtures first came out, Boro's start looked incredibly difficult, and this looked an incredibly difficult game. The timing is good for Boro. It's a good opportunity to go into the break and cap off what has been a perfect start in quite stunning fashion, really. But I think you only need to look at Sheffield United's team to know that it's not going to be a walkover on Saturday. Surely this team are going to click at some point, aren't they? I mean, let's hope it's not Saturday, but they've got
what you've got to say is, I mean, has there ever been a more sliding doors footballing moment than that playoff final when you look at what's happened to Sunderland and Sheffield United since then? I mean, goodness me. But I agree. You know, it does feel like Sheffield United are going to be too good to be in this situation. And yet, you know, you only have to look at Luton last season to see where tailspin can take you. Now, you know, it's far too early to be saying that Sheffield United are heading there, but it's not impossible. You know, Luton showed that if you get into an absolute rut and just things start spiraling really badly, it can be very, very hard to get out of it. But I also agree with you, you know, this is still the Championship. Anything can happen on any given day. We know, that, like you say, that, you know, man for man, Sheffield United still have a very, very talented squad. Yes, their morale will be at rock bottom, and there's clearly some issues there that need resolving. But it's not going to be a walkover. But that said, I completely agree with you that, you know, I think it was the first 6 games, I think, wasn't it? The Opta's metrics had Boro as the hardest start. And that's why we were saying all the way through in the summer, they need a positive result against Swansea. They need to hit the ground running there, because what's coming straight off the back of that is really hard. Well, they've won at Millwall, they've won at Norwich. If they can now see off Sheffield United and get into the international break with 12 points from 12, yes, there's the Doncaster League Cup game. I think we all probably accept that we can just put that in a box and hopefully forget about it. If they can beat Sheffield United and be on 12 from 12, then given everything that's kind of gone on in this summer, all the narrative, all the talk, you know, doom and gloom, yeah, probably, then I think that is a brilliant, brilliant start for Boro and Rob Edwards and this new squad.
Well, if Sheffield United don't pull the finger out and continue to linger around at the bottom, there is a former manager, and it's not Chris Wilder, who can come in there to possibly bail them out down the line.
I was going to say, there's a couple, isn't there? What is Chris Wilder? Can you imagine that?
Well, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Rob Edwards presser Friday this week, so we'll be over there 1 o'clock Friday. So we'll be there, obviously, with reaction from Edwards. We'll be there on Saturday, so we'll have full analysis there. And then, of course, it's deadline day on Monday, and we will drop in and do a live vid at some stage throughout the day. Don't know what time. Let's see how things progress.
See how things pan out. But probably kind of mid to late Monday morning, we'll jump on and just chat through what's happening and set the scene for all the rest of the day.
And where we're at. Yeah. So keep your eye on our socials and we'll shout up when we're going to do that. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy your game. Enjoy the game if you're there Saturday, and we'll speak on Monday. Take care.